Hi, and welcome to Episode 1 of Attack of the Rhetoric, where I use the Star Wars movie saga as a launching pad to explore history, philosophy, and literature. Today's exciting topic is the Jedi Order. I have no doubt that the history of the Jedi Order has been variously explored and explained throughout the expanded universe. However, George Lucas, and I can only assume Disney, doesn't really give a shit. So, according to the expanded universe, this video may be redundant or entirely wrong, but it is based on what we have learned about the Jedi from the 6 feature films. It's my intention to compare the Jedi with history's most elite warriors, the samurai. There's most definitely some very important distinctions between the two. But in an attempt to extrapolate the methodology of the Jedi Order, I look for similar historical organizations from the real world. Due to Lucas's reported influence by the 1958 Jedi film Hidden Fortress, it has become commonly accepted that the philosophy of Star Wars has a distinctive Oriental flavor. I believe it was Lucas who said, "Like Kurosawa, I make mad films. Okay, I don't make films, but if I did, they'd have a samurai." That was Lucas, right? So anyway, a comparison of the Jedi and the samurai seems appropriate. Thus, I call this episode Jedi Orientation. According to Lucas, he took the word Jedi from the Jedi genre of films. Literally, it means period pieces set between the 17th and 19th centuries of Japanese history, and typically centered on the lives of samurai. There's a slight but poignant similarity in that the samurai, like Saigo Takamori, eventually became socially obsolete and were branded as enemies of the very state they were sworn to protect, just like the Jedi. By comparing examples from the Star Wars saga to Eastern systems of philosophy, I shall try to answer 3 basic questions. Why was the Force first used? Why were the ways of the Force perpetually taught? And why was the code of the Jedi Order formed? As we learned from Qui-Gon Jinn in Episode 1, all living beings possess within their cells a certain amount of midi-chlorians.
Midi-chlorians.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know.
Those born with an extraordinary amount of chlorofluorocarbons.
Midi-chlorians.
People born this way gain extraordinary physical and metaphysical abilities. These abilities manifest themselves in several ways, including enhanced reflexes, heightened senses, premonition, acute perception, and depleting the ozone layer. It is currently unknown to me how old the recognition of the Force is, but presumably every generation of sentient beings produces a number of gifted individuals. Therefore, it is likely that as long as there has been consciousness, there has been an awareness of the Force. Over the countless eons across the manifold worlds of the universe, the innate abilities of cave Jedi were slowly developed until an individual or group founded the basic principles of Force wielding. The abilities would have gained potency as each successive generation of Force wielders discovered new venues for their powers. Like Qui-Gon Jinn was the first to return from the Great Beyond, although, thanks to Ra's al Ghul, we never actually see him. There's probably one person who originally took the first steps into a larger world, realized the vast potential of the Force, and made unprecedented progress in its applications, probably by messing around with his cat. He would be the first to recognize fully that the Force, like Lao Tzu's Tao, was what the myriad creatures depend on for life, yet claims no authority. But how and why would the first go around teaching others? After all, a good magician never reveals his secrets. And how do you determine who is worthy of these secrets? In The World of Myth, David Leeming answers, "This doubt assails the Buddha. He nevertheless immediately responds to a definite request for guidance. The moment the pupil puts the right questions, the teacher's doubts are resolved." In other words, like C-3PO in the Ewok village, the Force wielder would certainly impress upon others a feeling of awe at his magical accomplishments. A whole bunch of bitches would want to learn this knowledge also, but only a few would be deemed worthy. Almost immediately there would be a rift between those who, with what they had learned, wanted to aid others, and those who wanted to aid themselves. Every group dynamic produces 2 camps, suckers and freeloaders. Here we have the initial separation of the Sith and the Jedi. Miyamoto Musashi writes, in his Book of Five Rings, and this way of life in particular, if you misperceive the path even slightly, if you stray from the right way, you fall into evil states. Perhaps by virtue of opposing school was each school defined, like how Star Wars and Star Trek maintain two very different views on the principles of space exploration. That is until they wound up with the same director. The chief virtue of the Jedi, as we learned in Episode 2, would be compassion. You might say, we're encouraged to love, baby. Yamamoto Tsunetomo writes in his profound and perennial book, Hagakure, "Whatever you do should be done for the sake of your master and parents, the people in general, and for posterity. This is great compassion." When one punishes or strives with the heart of compassion, what he does will be limitless in strength and correctness. Doing something for one's own sake is shallow and mean and turns into evil. The foundation for ruling the country in peace is compassion. The abhorrence and constant fear of succumbing to that rival school would have led to more and more strict regulations on teaching about the Force. To borrow an old maxim from comic book legend Stan Lee, with great power comes great responsibility. If the Jedi are to take it upon themselves to aid society, then how will they ensure that their teachings, by misuse, won't lead to the downfall of society? Like Tai Lung. The Order had to be established so that a council of experienced leaders could decide how best to teach their Padawans and to decide what preventative measures could be taken against the dark side. The council's duty, as Yagyu Munenori says of the samurai, would be seeing the situation of the states, knowing when there will be a disputation, and healing disturbances before it happens. The council, in order to limit the influences of the dark side, would have put regulations on many things which could potentially lead even the experienced down the wrong path. In the movies, these repudiations seem to center around attachment and aggression. Attachment leads to a whole host of negative emotions such as obsession, jealousy, fear of loss, and hoarding. There is a repudiation of attachment and avoidance of lingering on anything. Not lingering is considered quintessential. The Tibetan Book of the Dead refers to all attachments as visions. These visions have no reality outside your consciousness, and it urges one to remember the clear light from which everything in the universe comes, to which everything in the universe returns. No need to be attached to visions at all. If you become involved with these visions, you may wander for a long time confused. Aggression seems to be an innate quality of most beings, expressing itself from time to time with little enticement, reason, purpose, and is often a byproduct of attachment. Aggression itself is a negative emotion that is always harmful to the individual and usually harmful to others, and is also often the cause of sorrow, regret, dissension, and grudges. Therefore, it would be indispensable for the Jedi to control his aggressive feelings. Munenori, don't let your mood become hurried and aggressive. It is essential to control your mood by means of your will, so your will is not drawn by your mood. Some might feel that the Jedi Order is too strict, but as Tsunetomo says of the Lotus Sutra sect, it is by reason of its fearsome character that it is the Lotus sect. If its character were not so, it would be a different sect altogether. In other words, if the Jedi weren't always on their guard, they could very easily fall to the dark side. Power breeds corruption. Qui-Gon Jinn says, your focus determines your reality, and Obi-Wan that many of the truths that we cling to are based largely on our own point of view. In one of the best known and widely read Buddhist scriptures, we are told, with our thoughts we make the world. So it is imperative that the Jedi maintain clear and positive thoughts while abstaining from attachment and aggression. Lao Tzu tells us, one who excels in fighting is never roused in anger. But if the Jedi are going to defend society, then some kind of aggression is going to be unavoidable. The important distinction is that negative aggression is without consideration. So the positive would be aggressive negotiation. Now I would like to explore the role of the lightsaber, as a weapon and as a symbol. The crystal is the heart of the blade. The heart is the crystal of the Jedi. The Jedi is the crystal of the Force. The Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi, you are one. For a young Jedi, practicing with a lightsaber has a fortunate side effect. It seems every generation must learn from itself that youth and power is a combustive combination. The burgeoning nascent abilities combined with adolescent angst, especially under the strict orthodoxy of the Jedi, would be a nearly unbearable strain on the Padawan's psyche. Behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner suggests that allowing the child to act out his or her aggressive feelings in a constructive way is an invaluable safety valve for emotional pressure. We are often aware of a strong tendency to do or say something although an occasion is lacking. More often, however, we do not respond because we have been punished. We have repressed our rage because we have been punished for expressing it. Our behavior becomes stronger than the incompatible behaviors which have previously displaced it. The pressure may be reduced by providing an environment in which behavior may be freely omitted or impulses may be channeled into more useful outlets. They permit children to behave aggressively in unpunished ways. If the Jedi are to protect society, then what will protect the Jedi? The Jedi is imbued with discerning perception, supernatural insight, and incredible power. Surely this is enough to serve the Jedi in all capacities. As mythologist Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces writes about wisdom, a consummate master would require no physical weapon at all. The power of his magic word would suffice. But the problem with wisdom and words is that they are intangible, and people tend to ignore old dudes just walking around in their bathrobes. For the teeming masses, the power of the Jedi must be clearly seen in order to be respected and obeyed. What the Jedi need is a symbol, something elemental, simple, elegant but utilitarian. Thus the birth of the lightsaber, a symbolic thunderbolt, an instrument that cuts through all things actual and dubious. The thunderbolt is one of the major symbols in Buddhist iconography, signifying the spiritual power of the Buddhahood, indestructible enlightenment, which shatters the illusory realities of the world. Yoda informs Luke, do or do not. This is indicative of the abilities the Jedi wield, that anything can be accomplished through the Force, but only when the mind is serious and faithful. Tsunetomo writes similar words, "No matter what it is, there is nothing that cannot be done. Moving heaven and earth without effort is simply a matter of concentration." This concept is certainly intimidating, but like wisdom, the faithful mind cannot be conspicuously displayed to those who would do evil. The lightsaber shines as the Jedi's power incarnate. Just as the samurai wore their two swords, the lightsaber is a badge to be respected. But the power of the lightsaber isn't solely in its use as a symbol. It has very real applications for when the Jedi, or the people, are threatened. Yet, when is it acceptable for a passive Jedi to wield his potent weapon in combat? The lightsaber, in many ways, is representative of the same authority as the swords of the samurai. The samurai unsheathe their swords only to use them when unavoidable. Myriad people suffer because of the evil of one man. In such a case, myriad people are saved by killing one man. This sword that kills is the sword that gives life, writes Munenori. Once engaged, the Jedi is a force to be reckoned with. When hunting General Grievous, Obi-Wan plops right down in the midst of many enemies. Tsunetomo, the way of the samurai is one of immediacy, and it is best to dash headlong, even if it will be very difficult to succeed by advancing straight ahead. It will not do to think about going at it in a long, roundabout way. This doesn't mean that the Jedi should be far too reckless. Rather, that they should be resolved in advance, having already concluded what to do in a particular situation before that situation arises, even though the Queen would not approve. This means having an appreciation of your actions' ramifications, the ability to discern right and wrong without having to discuss it in a committee. Legendary sword saint Miyamoto Musashi writes rules of martial arts that read like Jedi precepts. Think of what is right and true. Understand the harm and benefit in everything. Learn to see everything accurately. Be careful even in small matters. Do not do anything useless. You hardly become a master, writes Musashi, unless you can see the immediate in a broad context. Once you have learned this principle, you should not be defeated even in individual combat against 20 or 30 opponents. No thought should be given to life or death, victory or defeat, expounds Tsunetomo, only on what needs to be done. No matter if the enemy has thousands of men, there is fulfillment in simply standing them off and being determined to cut them all down. You will finish the greater part of it. Zen Buddhism was the primary religion of many samurai. Zen stressed the transience of life and that each moment should be cherished as though death would come in the next instant. This corresponds with Qui-Gon's living force, the here and now. To me, being mindful of the living force means not letting anticipation of the future or bias of the past to hinder your judgment or your actions. In The Unfettered Mind, Takawan Soho, a prominent Zen master, explains, "This means one should cut right through the interval between previous and present. Its significance is in cutting off the edge between before and after, between now and then. It means not detaining the mind. If the mind congeals in one place and remains with one thing, it is like frozen water and is unable to be used freely." This, among other similar concepts, is what Soho refers to as the mystery of immovable wisdom. What happens when immovable wisdom meets unstoppable stupidity? Soho symbolizes this immovable wisdom as a sword. Under heaven there is nothing that can parry this blade. The person who obtains this uncreated, mysterious ability, the living force, will not be swayed by the commander of huge armies or an enemy force of hundreds of thousands. This is the same as there being nothing that can impede the blade of this famous sword. Thus I call the strength of the mysterious ability the sword. The samurai seem almost certainly to be the template of the Jedi, but this does not suggest that the samurai and the Jedi are identical, only comparable. The philosophy of Buddhism and Taoism is manifest in the words and actions of the Jedi, but their role in society are in accordance with the way of the samurai, those who serve. Yeah, serve up serious ass whoopings. In conclusion, here is a quote from Eiji Yoshikawa's famous novel, Musashi. These words, spoken by the title character, could have been uttered by Old Ben right before his fatal encounter with Darth Vader aboard the Death Star. This river, you know, may be the three-pronged river of hell. This road, the mile-long road to perdition. This hill I'll soon climb, the mountain of needles on which the damned are impaled. Nevertheless, this is the only path toward true life. There are those who die by remaining alive, and others who gain life by dying. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, click the thumbs up, and please subscribe. What?